Hello and welcome to The Explainer. You know, for the last decade, it feels like every single tech conversation in the boardroom has been about one thing: the race to the cloud. Well, a really interesting new report from the tech research firm Virtualization Options LLC is pointing to a strategic countermove, a U-turn really, that some of the world's smartest companies are starting to make. We're going to dig into why they're doing it and what it could mean for your own strategy.
So let me ask you, and be honest, does this sound familiar? You moved to the cloud because it was supposed to be all about efficiency, right? But now those bills, they're all over the place and they just keep climbing. If you're nodding your head right now, then you are definitely going to want to hear about this trend.
Yeah, for so long, the absolute mantra was cloud first. No questions asked. But things are starting to shift.
This new move has a name. It's called cloud repatriation. And look, the most important thing to get here, and the Virtualization Options LLC report really hammers this home, is that this is not a retreat. It's not about admitting failure. It's a very deliberate, strategic process to get back in the driver's seat and optimize your entire IT setup.
So what are we really talking about here? It's not about just ditching the cloud altogether. No way. It's about being smarter. It's about asking a really simple but critical question. For this specific application, or this specific set of data, where is the absolute best place for it to live?
Okay, so why would anyone do this? Why bring all that stuff back in-house? Well, the business case really boils down to three very powerful drivers. And first up, you guessed it, is the one that gets every CFO's attention: cost optimization. This is all about taking back the reins on your tech spending. You know how it is. Public cloud costs can be just notoriously hard to predict. It makes budgeting a nightmare. Repatriation helps you swap that unpredictable monthly bill, that OpEx, for a more stable, manageable cost. And just as important, it helps you break free from what they call vendor lock-in, where you're kind of stuck with one provider and you're at the mercy of their pricing. At the end of the day, this is all about getting financial predictability back. All right, driver number two, it's all about pure performance. Because let's face it, for some of your applications, the ones that are the real lifeblood of your company, every single millisecond of delay, what we call latency, can hit the bottom line hard. In this game, proximity is everything. And that's exactly where you can get a huge leg up. When you bring those workloads back home, you can just slash that latency. Think about real-time data analytics or high-frequency financial transactions. It's a game changer for them. Plus, it means you can actually fine-tune the hardware for one very specific, super-critical task instead of just using some generic one-size-fits-all server out there in the cloud.
And that brings us to the third critical driver. And this is a big one, something that's on every executive's radar right now: beefing up security and getting a handle on all that regulatory risk.
Honestly, for risk management, this is a total game changer. Think about it. When you repatriate, you're bringing your most sensitive stuff, your customer data, your IP, back under your own roof, under your direct control. That makes it so much easier to enforce your own custom security rules and to prove you're complying with those complex regulations like GDPR or HIPAA. You get what's called data sovereignty. It's a fancy term, but it just means your data lives where you say it lives, under the laws you choose to operate under.
Okay, so the why makes a ton of sense. But you're probably thinking, what about the how? This sounds complicated. Well, the report is really clear on this point. This isn't some chaotic free-for-all. It's a structured, totally manageable process.
So, what's the roadmap look like? It's a four-step journey, really. First, you assess and analyze. You take a hard look at all your applications and figure out which ones are the best candidates, the ones with the high costs or the big performance needs. Then you plan and provision. This is where you draw up the actual roadmap and get your on-premise resources ready to go. Step 3 is the big one: migrate and test. You move the workloads and you validate everything to make sure it's all working perfectly. And check out this last step: optimize and refine. It's a continuous cycle. This isn't a one-and-done move. It's an ongoing strategy to keep things running at their best.
So what's the payoff? What does success actually look like in the real world? Well, when you do this right, the return on investment is not just tangible, it's pretty darn impressive. And the report has some great data that really brings this to life. I mean, just imagine this. What if you could cut your monthly cloud spend by 30%,
or slash your application response time by more than half, making everything feel lightning fast to your users. What about getting 80% utilization out of the servers you actually own instead of just 50%? And on top of all that, dramatically cutting down on security incidents. That is the business case in action, right there in the numbers.
And all of this really brings us to the ultimate goal here. Look, this is not about being anti-cloud. It's about evolving. It's about moving away from a public cloud-only strategy to a much more sophisticated hybrid cloud strategy. This way, you get the absolute best of both worlds. You can use the incredible scale and flexibility of the public cloud when it makes sense, but you combine that with the cost control, the performance, and the rock-solid security of your own private infrastructure for your most important assets.
You know, the Virtualization Options LLC report puts it perfectly, and I think this quote really sums it all up. Cloud repatriation can be a strategic decision for organizations seeking to optimize costs, improve performance, and enhance security. See? It's not a step backward. It's a major step forward in strategic sophistication.
And so, that really brings us to the final question, the one we want to leave you with today. When you think about the potential gains in cost control, in performance, in security, doesn't it make sense to take a fresh, really hard look at your own cloud strategy? That surprising U-turn, it might just be the smartest turn your business can make. Thanks for joining us for The Explainer.